The space around Earth's moon suddenly filled with light. Massive ships appeared out of nowhere, their crystal hulls catching starlight and throwing it back in rainbow patterns. The ships were huge, each one the size of a small city. There were hundreds of them, forming a perfect circle around the small blue planet that humans called home. Admiral Kethvara stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge. His four arms moved across control panels while his large purple eyes studied the primitive world below. The humans had built some metal stations around their planet and sent a few crude ships to nearby worlds, but they were clearly not ready for what was coming. "Report," Kethvara said to his second-in-command. "All ships in position, Admiral. The human world shows no signs of advanced weapons. We count only 12 orbital stations and maybe 30 ships. Very basic technology. They still use chemical fuel to move through space." Kethvara nodded. This would be easier than taking the mining worlds of Centauri or the trade stations near Vega. In 2 years of conquest, the Zephyrian Empire had claimed 17 star systems. Each victory had been harder than the last, but Earth looked like it would barely fight back. "Send the message," he ordered. The communication traveled down to Earth in several human languages. The message was simple: surrender now or be destroyed. The humans had 1 day to respond. While they waited, Kethvara walked through his ship. The Dominion's Edge was beautiful, made from living crystal that could heal itself if damaged. The walls glowed with soft blue light and the floors felt warm under his feet. His crew moved with quiet confidence. They had done this many times before. But something bothered the Admiral. Over the past few months, several of their scout ships had gone missing. The report said it was equipment failure or accidents in deep space. Space was dangerous after all. Ships broke down. Sometimes crews made mistakes. Still, it seemed like too many accidents. "Admiral," called his communications officer, "we're getting reports from the outer edge of the fleet." "What kind of reports?" "Some ships say their long-range sensors are picking up strange readings. Nothing clear, but there might be something else out there." Kethvara frowned. His scouts had spent months studying this system. There was nothing dangerous here. Just a young star, some gas giant planets, and this one world with the clever but primitive humans. "Tell them to stay alert, but don't worry too much. Humans barely have space travel. They certainly don't have the technology to threaten us." The Admiral returned to his bridge and looked down at Earth. The planet looked peaceful. White clouds swirled over blue oceans. The lights of human cities dotted the dark side of the world. It reminded him of his own home planet before the wars began. His fleet had traveled for months to reach this place. The humans would never see them coming until it was too late. That was how the Zephyrian Empire worked. They appeared suddenly, demanded surrender, and took what they wanted. Most species gave up without a fight once they saw the size of the fleet. "Any response from the humans yet?" Kethvara asked. "Nothing, Admiral. Their communication systems are very basic. It might take them time to organize a response." Kethvara settled into his command chair. The chair was grown from the same living crystal as his ship, and it adjusted to fit his body perfectly. Everything about Zephyrian technology was designed for comfort and efficiency. They had learned to work with their environment instead of fighting against it. The humans, from what his scouts had reported, still used metal and crude electronics. They burned fossil fuels and fought wars with kinetic weapons. They were barely more advanced than the species his people had been trading with 1,000 years ago. "Admiral, we're getting more reports from the perimeter ships." "What now?" "Several captains report that their backup systems are running diagnostic checks without being ordered to do so. And some of the navigation computers are showing small errors in position." This was strange. Zephyrian technology was very reliable. Their ships were grown, not built, and the living systems rarely had problems like this. "Run a full system check on all ships," Kethvara ordered, "and tell the captains to report anything unusual directly to me." Hours passed. Earth continued to spin below them, peaceful and quiet. The human orbital stations made no threatening moves. The few human ships in the area seemed to be running away rather than approaching the Zephyrian fleet. "Admiral, the system checks are complete. Results? All ships report normal function, but 12 captains say they found evidence that their computer systems had been accessed from outside. Very subtle access. Whoever did it was careful not to leave obvious traces." Kethvara stood up quickly. "Accessed by whom?" "There's nothing in this system that could do that." "Unknown, Admiral. The access patterns don't match any known technology, But something has been looking at our navigation data, ship positions, and tactical information. The Admiral's forearms clenched into fists. Someone had been spying on his fleet. But who? The humans couldn't possibly have that kind of technology. His own scouts would have detected any advanced civilization in this system. Double the watch on all ships. I want every sensor pointed outward, not just at the human world. Something is out there. Yes, Admiral. Keithavara stared at the image of Earth on his main screen. The planet looked the same as before, but now it felt different. Like it was hiding something. Like it was watching him back. Sir, we're getting a transmission from Earth, finally. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen was human, but not what Keithavara expected. The human was female, wearing what looked like a military uniform. Behind her, Keithavara could see the bridge of a ship, but it didn't look like the crude human technology his scouts had reported. Greetings, the human said calmly. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. I believe you wanted to speak with us. You have 1 day to surrender, Keithavara replied, sticking to the standard message. Submit to Zephyrian rule or face destruction. The human admiral smiled, and something about that smile made Keithavara uncomfortable. That's interesting, Admiral Chen said. But I think you should look behind you first. The transmission ended. Behind us. Keithavara turned to his sensor operator. What's behind us? Scanning now, Admiral. I'm reading. This can't be right. What? Admiral, there's a ship directly behind our formation. A big ship. I don't know how it got there without us seeing it. Keithavara felt ice forming in his chest. Show me. The main screen changed to show the space behind the Zephyrian fleet. At first, Keithavara saw nothing but stars. Then the stars seemed to shift, and suddenly a massive ship appeared. It was larger than his flagship, dark gray metal with strange geometric patterns on its hull. How long has it been there? Keithavara demanded. Unknown, Admiral. It just appeared on our sensors. But based on the heat signature, it's been sitting there for at least several hours. Several hours. A human ship had been sitting behind his fleet for hours without being detected. That was impossible. Zephyrian sensors were the best in the galaxy. Are there any other ships? Scanning. Admiral, I'm picking up more contacts. Ships are appearing all throughout the system. They were hidden somehow, but now they're making themselves visible. Keithavara watched in growing horror as dozens of human ships revealed themselves. They had been hiding in asteroid fields behind planets, even in the shadow of his own fleet. The humans had not only known the Zephyrians were coming, they had been ready for them. This is impossible, he whispered. How did they know we were coming? How did they hide so many ships? His communications officer spoke up nervously. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen again, still smiling that unsettling smile. Admiral Keithavara, she said, and the fact that she knew his name sent another chill through him. Welcome to Earth, we've been expecting you. Admiral Keithavara stared at the human woman on his screen. Something was very wrong with this situation. His fleet had appeared without warning, yet this Admiral Chen acted like she had been waiting for him. How do you know my name? He demanded. We know a lot about you, Admiral. We know about your conquest of the Altair colonies 3 months ago. We know about your victory at Wolf 359. We even know that you prefer to attack during what the local population considers their morning hours. Keithavara's 4 hands gripped his command chair. That information was classified. Only high-ranking Zephyrian officers knew those details. Impossible. You couldn't have that information. Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. Oh, but we do. You see, Admiral, we've been watching you for quite some time. Every system you've conquered, every ship you've destroyed, every surrender you've accepted. We've been there taking notes. Lies, Keithavara shouted. Our scouts would have detected any human presence. Would they? Chen asked. Tell me, Admiral, how many scout ships have you lost in the past 6 months? The question hit Keithavara like a physical blow. The missing ships, the equipment failures, the accidents in deep space. You're saying you destroyed our scouts? Destroyed is such an ugly word. We prefer to say we borrowed them. Temporarily. Just long enough to download their navigation logs, tactical databases, and communication protocols. Very educational reading. Keithavara turned to his sensor operator. How many human ships are out there now? I'm counting 47, Admiral. No, wait, more are appearing. 63, no, 71. They keep coming out of hiding. This is impossible, Keithavara muttered. Our intelligence said humans barely had space travel. Your intelligence was deliberately fed false information. Admiral Chen replied. She had obviously been listening to the bridge conversation. Those primitive ships and basic stations you observed? We built them specifically for you to see. We wanted you to think we were helpless. Why? Because, Admiral, humans have learned that the best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy doesn't know there's going to be a fight until it's already over. Kethvara's tactical officer spoke up. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy readings from the human ships. Their weapons are charging. How powerful? Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Admiral Chen was still talking. Right about now, your tactical officers are probably telling you that our weapons don't match your database. That's because human technology developed along a different path than yours. We had to learn to fight enemies who were bigger and stronger than us, so we got creative. You're bluffing, Kethvara said, but his voice lacked conviction. One human ship cannot stand against a Zephyrian dreadnought. You're absolutely right, Chen agreed. One human ship probably couldn't beat one of yours in a fair fight. Good thing we don't believe in fair fights. As she spoke, Kethvara's tactical display lit up with new information. The human ships weren't just scattered randomly around the system. They were positioned at specific points that created overlapping fields of fire. Every Zephyrian ship was targeted by at least 3 human vessels. You see, Admiral, while you were taking months to travel here through normal space, our ships were already moving. We've had teams watching your empire for over a year. We know the location of every military base, every supply depot, and every major population center in Zephyrian space. That's impossible. You would need faster-than-light travel capabilities far beyond what our scouts reported. Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see, just like you're seeing what we want you to see right now. Kethvara felt a chill run through his body. What do you mean? Admiral, please have your communications officer try to contact your home base on Zephyr Prime. Kethvara nodded to his communications officer, who began working at his station. After a few moments, the officer looked up with a confused expression. Sir, I can't reach Zephyr Prime, or any of our major bases. All long-range communications are being blocked. Blocked how? Admiral Chen answered instead of his officer. We're not blocking them, Admiral. The bases aren't responding because they're busy dealing with some unexpected visitors. You're lying. Am I? Officer, try reaching the supply depot at Rigel, or the shipyard at Proxima, or the communications relay at Bernard Star. Kethvara watched as his communications officer tried to reach base after base. Nothing. No responses from anywhere in Zephyrian space. How? He whispered. Simple, Admiral Chen replied. While you were traveling here with your main fleet, our ships were visiting your territory. Not to destroy anything, you understand. We're not monsters, but we thought your people might be more willing to listen to reason if their military forces were temporarily out of action. You attacked our worlds? We prefer to call it rapid disarmament. Very few casualties, actually. Humans are quite good at disabling things without breaking them permanently. Kethvara turned to his tactical officer. Status of the fleet? All ships report ready for combat, Admiral. But sir, we're outnumbered. The humans now have over 100 ships visible and more keep appearing. How many more? I've stopped counting at 150, sir. Admiral Chen's voice continued from the speakers. Admiral, I'm going to share something with you that your scouts missed. That your intelligence services missed. That your entire government missed. What? Humans aren't new to space, Admiral. We've been out here for longer than you think. We've built colonies in places your people never thought to look. We've established trade relationships with species your empire has never encountered. We've been preparing for this meeting for a very long time. Preparing for what meeting? The one where a younger species decides to come to Earth and demand our surrender. It's happened before, you know. The hegemony tried it about 30 years ago. The Vorthan Empire made the attempt 50 years before that. The pattern is always the same. Kethvara felt his heart sinking. What happened to them? The hegemony? They're still around. They run several very successful mining operations in human space now. The Vorthans started a shipping company. Quite profitable, actually. They're much happier now than when they were trying to conquer people. You're saying you defeated 2 other empires? Not defeated, Admiral. Absorbed. There's a difference. When you defeat someone, they stay your enemy. When you absorb them, they become part of your team. Kethvara looked at his tactical display again. The human ships had moved into a perfect formation. His fleet was completely surrounded with no path of escape that wouldn't lead directly into human weapons. What do you want? He asked. Right now, Admiral, I want you to understand something very important. The ships you see around you represent maybe 5% of the human fleet. The rest are busy making sure your people back home understand that fighting us is not in their best interest. 5%? Did you really think that a species capable of interstellar travel would keep all their ships in one star system? Admiral, humans spread out. It's what we do. We explore, we build, we prepare. And when someone comes to our home and threatens our families, we respond with everything we have. Kathvara's sensor operator spoke up. Admiral, I'm detecting new ship movements. Large formations dropping out of faster-than-light travel throughout Zephyrian space. Human ships? Yes, sir. Hundreds of them. They're taking positions around every major Zephyrian world. Admiral Chen's voice took on a gentler tone. Admiral Kathvara, your empire sent its main fleet to conquer Earth. But Earth was never the real target. Earth was the bait. We wanted your fleet here, away from your homeworld, so we could have a conversation with your people without your military getting in the way. A conversation about what? About joining us, Admiral. About becoming part of something bigger than conquest and empire. About learning that the galaxy is big enough for everyone if we work together instead of fighting each other. Kathvara slumped in his chair. Everything he thought he knew about this mission was wrong. Everything his people believed about human capabilities was wrong. The Zephyrian Empire had walked into a trap that had been years in the making. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now, Admiral, you get to make a choice, and the choice you make will determine what happens to your people and your empire. Captain Marcus Rodriguez crouched in the shadows of the massive crystal spire that housed the Zephyrian Central Command on their homeworld. His team of 12 specialists had been on Zephyr Prime for 6 days, moving through the underground maintenance tunnels that the Zephyrians had never bothered to guard properly. Phoenix leader to control, he whispered into his comm unit. We're in position at the primary target. The voice of Admiral Chen came back through his earpiece. Copy, Phoenix leader. You are cleared to begin Phase 3, remember, minimal casualties. We want to disable, not destroy. Understood, Control. Beginning operation now, Rodriguez signaled to his team. They moved with practiced silence through the crystal corridors of the command center. The Zephyrians built everything from living crystal that glowed softly and felt warm to the touch. It was beautiful. But it also meant their entire infrastructure depended on the central control nodes that kept the crystal networks active. Sergeant Kim worked quickly at the main power distribution panel. Her hands moved across alien controls with confidence born from months of studying captured Zephyrian technology. Power grid mapped and ready for shutdown, she reported. I can cut power to their military communications, fleet coordination, and planetary defense systems without affecting civilian areas. Do it, Rodriguez ordered. Around the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of Zephyrian worlds. Human special forces teams that had been inserted weeks earlier were now striking at key infrastructure points, not destroying them but taking control of them. On Altair 7, Lieutenant Torres led her team through the main shipyard facility. The massive construction bays that built Zephyrian warships were slowly powering down as human technicians took control of the automated systems. This is incredible, whispered Corporal Jackson as they watched robotic arms carefully moving half-finished ships into secure storage positions. Their entire manufacturing network is controlled from just 3 locations. Makes sense, Torres replied. When you have crystal-based technology that grows instead of being built, you need fewer control points. Also makes it easier for us to take over everything at once. On Proxima Station, the main communication relay that connected the Zephyrian Empire, Commander Patel was discovering just how thoroughly human intelligence had penetrated Zephyrian systems. Ma'am, reported Ensign Walsh, we have complete access to their communication network. Every message, every order, every status report from the past 2 years is in these databases. 2 years? Patel asked. How did we get access for 2 years? According to these logs, someone's been inserting monitoring software into their updates for their communication system. Every time they thought they were upgrading their security, they were actually giving us deeper access. Patel shook her head in amazement. Human intelligence services had been planning this operation for much longer than she had realized. Back on Zephyr Prime, Rodriguez received reports from teams across the planet. The Zephyrian military command structure was being systematically isolated. Not destroyed, just disconnected from their ships and bases. Phoenix 2 reporting. Orbital defense platforms are offline. Phoenix 3 here. Military Academy secured. No resistance. Phoenix 4. Fleet Command is locked out of all ship communications. Rodriguez smiled. The Zephyrians were probably trying to figure out what was happening, but without their communication networks, they couldn't coordinate any kind of response. His comm unit crackled with Admiral Chen's voice. Phoenix Leader, we're getting reports that Zephyrian civilians are starting to notice the power disruptions. How long until you can restore civilian services? Estimate 15 minutes, Control. Kim's got the civilian power grid separated from military systems now. Excellent. Make sure they know we're not here to hurt anyone. Rodriguez made his way to the main communication center. A Zephyrian technician sat at a control station, staring in confusion at displays that showed his entire network offline. Excuse me, Rodriguez said in carefully learned Zephyrian. The technician jumped and turned around, his large purple eyes wide with surprise. Who are you? How did you get in here? My name is Captain Rodriguez. I'm with the Human Defense Force. We're not here to harm you or your people. Humans. But humans don't have the technology to get past our defenses. Rodriguez held up a small device that was obviously human technology, but far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen before. We have better technology than you think. We've been preparing for this for a long time. Preparing for what? To have a conversation with your people about joining us instead of fighting us. Your fleet came to Earth to demand our surrender. We thought it would be better to come here and suggest cooperation instead. The Zephyrian technician looked confused. You invaded our homeworld to suggest cooperation? We came to prevent a war, Rodriguez corrected. Your fleet is at Earth right now, surrounded by our ships. Your military commanders are probably trying to decide whether to fight or surrender. We thought it would be better if your people had all the facts before making that decision. What facts? Rodriguez activated a wall display that showed the current positions of human and Zephyrian fleets throughout the galaxy. The technician stared in shock at the strategic situation. Human ships had appeared at every major Zephyrian world simultaneously. The fact that humans have been watching your empire expand for 2 years. The fact that we have ships positioned throughout your territory. The fact that we could have destroyed your infrastructure but chose to disable it instead. And the fact that we want to offer your people a choice. What choice? Join us, work with us, share your technology and knowledge with us, and we'll share ours with you. Stop trying to conquer other species and start helping us explore the galaxy instead. The technician was quiet for a long moment. And if we refuse? Rodriguez was quiet too. Then he said, Your Admiral Kethavar is probably asking the same question right now. The answer is that we really hope you don't refuse. Fighting is wasteful. People die. Resources are destroyed. Families are broken up. We'd much rather have you as friends than enemies. But you could force us if you wanted to. Look at the display, Rodriguez said gently. What do you think? The technician studied the tactical situation shown on the screen. Human ships outnumbered Zephyrian forces by almost 10 to 1. More importantly, the humans had achieved complete surprise and were in position to control every important facility in Zephyrian space. We never saw you coming, the technician said quietly. No, you didn't. Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see. Your intelligence services learned what we wanted them to learn. Your military planned for an enemy that we wanted them to plan for. How long have you been planning this? Since the first time an alien empire decided to come to Earth and demand our surrender. We learned from that experience. We decided that the best way to handle future threats was to be ready for them before they knew we existed. Rodriguez's comm unit buzzed. Phoenix Leader, this is Control. We're getting word that Zephyrian civilian leaders are requesting communication with human representatives. Copy. Control. The civilian networks will be back online in 5 minutes. He turned back to the technician. In a few minutes, your people will be able to communicate with each other again. They'll also be able to communicate with our people. We're hoping they'll choose to talk instead of fight. What happens to our fleet at Earth? That depends on what your people decide here. If your civilians choose cooperation, your fleet will be invited to join the conversation. If they choose to fight, well, your fleet is currently surrounded by ships that they can't see until we want them to. The technician's expression showed growing understanding. You've been hiding ships throughout our space? For months. We've been studying your patrol patterns, your communication schedules, your supply routes. We know where every one of your ships is at any given time. But until today, you had no idea where any of ours were. That's not possible. Our sensors are the most advanced in this part of the galaxy. Rodriguez smiled. That's what the last two empires that tried to conquer Earth thought too. Humans are good at making people see what we want them to see, and we're very good at staying invisible when we want to. The lights in the control center came back on as Sergeant Kim restored power to the civilian networks. Almost immediately, communication requests started flooding in from across the planet. Your people are going to have a lot of questions, Rodriguez said. We're prepared to answer all of them. But the most important question is whether the Zephyrian Empire wants to become part of something bigger, or whether it wants to keep trying to conquer its neighbors. And if we choose to keep conquering? Rodriguez looked at the display showing human ships positioned throughout Zephyrian space. Then you'll discover that conquering becomes much harder when someone is always watching, always waiting, and always 3 steps ahead of you. The technician followed his gaze to the tactical display. The message was clear. The Zephyrian Empire could choose cooperation, or it could choose to fight an enemy that was already everywhere they thought they were safe. I think, the technician said slowly, that my people are going to want to hear what you have to say. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked through the detention area of the human ship Prometheus, carrying a data tablet and accompanied by 2 guards. The Zephyrian officers they had captured during the communication takeover on their flagship were being held in comfortable quarters, but they were clearly confused and frightened. I want to speak with whoever is in charge, demanded Sub-Admiral Thekran as Elena approached his cell. The Zephyrian officer was younger than Admiral Kethvara, with bright purple skin and the traditional forearms of his species. I'm Dr. Vasquez, head of xenobiology for the Human Defense Force, Elena replied calmly. I'm here to answer your questions. I demand to know how you infiltrated our systems. No species has technology advanced enough to penetrate Zephyrian security. Elena activated her tablet and showed him a complex diagram. Actually, 17 species have technology more advanced than yours. We know because we've studied them all. Impossible. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered every advanced species in this sector. No, Elena said gently. You've conquered every species that wanted to be found. The really advanced ones learned long ago that it's better to stay hidden and watch while younger species fight each other. Thekran stared at the diagram on her tablet. It showed technological development levels for dozens of species, with humans ranking near the top of the scale. This can't be accurate. Our scouts surveyed human space. You barely have faster-than-light travel. Your scouts surveyed the parts of human space we wanted them to see. Let me ask you something, Sub-Admiral. When your people first developed space travel, did you immediately announce your presence to the entire galaxy? Of course not. We explored quietly, learning about other species before making contact. Exactly. And when you encountered a species more powerful than you, what did you do? Thekran was quiet for a moment. We avoided them until we were stronger. That's what humans did too. Except we've been doing it for much longer than you think. Elena pulled up another display showing a timeline of human expansion. Thekran's eyes widened as he saw dates going back over a century. According to our records, humans only achieved faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. According to the records we wanted your scouts to find, yes. In reality, humans have been exploring the galaxy for over 100 years. We just learned very early to be careful about who knew we were there. How? Elena's expression grew serious. Because the first time humans encountered an alien species, that species tried to enslave us. It was a painful lesson, but we learned from it. She showed him historical records that made Thekran lean forward in shock. Images of ships attacking Earth, of human cities burning, of desperate resistance against technologically superior invaders. The Vorthon Empire came to Earth 90 years ago. They had the same attitude your people do. They saw a young species and decided we would make good slaves. The war lasted 5 years and cost millions of human lives. What happened to them? We learned their technology. We studied their tactics. We figured out how they thought and how they made decisions. And eventually we beat them. You destroyed their empire? No, we absorbed it. When the war ended, most Vorthons were happy to join us. Turns out they were tired of fighting endless wars of conquest. They preferred exploration and trade. Elena showed him more recent images of Vorthons and humans working together on massive space stations and colonies. The Vorthons are still around? Thekran asked in amazement. Very much so. They run our deep space exploration programs now. They're excellent at it, much better than conquest, which they never really enjoyed anyway. But how did you hide an entire interstellar civilization? Elena smiled. The same way your people hide from species that are more advanced than you. We stayed quiet, we moved carefully, and we made sure that anyone who might threaten us saw exactly what we wanted them to see. She pulled up a new display, showing the current extent of human space. Thekran stared in shock at a territory that was easily 5 times larger than the Zephyrian Empire. This is impossible. Our long-range scouts would have detected this much activity. Your long-range scouts detected exactly as much activity as we wanted them to detect. We've been tracking Zephyrian expansion for 2 years, Sub-Admiral. Every ship you sent into unknown space was watched. Every report they filed was read by our intelligence services. Every decision your government made was based on information we controlled. Why? Because 30 years ago another empire tried to conquer Earth. The hegemony was even larger than your empire. They made the same mistake you did. They assumed that because humans looked primitive from a distance, we actually were primitive. Elena showed him battle records from the Hegemony War. Massive fleets clashing in space. Entire worlds being contested. Millions of lives hanging in the balance. The Hegemony War lasted 3 years. By the end of it, we had learned everything we needed to know about how aggressive empires operate. We decided that the next time someone tried to conquer us, we would be ready for them long before they knew we existed. So you've been preparing for us specifically? Not specifically for Zephyrians, no. But we've been preparing for the next empire that would expand in our direction and decide that Earth looked like an easy target. We built intelligence networks, established hidden bases, and recruited allies throughout this part of the galaxy. Thekran looked at the display showing human territory again. How many species are part of your alliance? 43 at last count. Most of them are species that were conquered by someone else and asked us for help. Some are species that never wanted to fight anyone and preferred to join us rather than risk being attacked. A few are former empires that decided cooperation was better than conquest. Former empires? The Vorthan Empire became the Vorthan Exploration Service. The Hegemony became the Hegemony Trade Federation. They're much happier now, and much more prosperous. Elena pulled up economic data that showed the dramatic improvement in quality of life for species that had joined the human alliance. Conquest is expensive, Sub-Admiral. Ships get destroyed, people die, resources are wasted, trade and cooperation are much more profitable. But how do you maintain control over so many different species? We don't, Elena said simply. We don't want to control anyone. We want to work with them. Every species in our alliance maintains their own government, their own culture, their own way of life. We just work together on things that benefit everyone. Thekran was quiet for a long time, studying the information on Elena's tablet. Finally, he asked, "What's going to happen to us?" "That depends on what your people choose. Right now, representatives from 43 different species are talking to Zephyrian civilian leaders. They're explaining how the alliance works, what the benefits are, and what would be expected of Zephyrians if they choose to join us." "And if we choose not to join?" Elena's expression grew serious again. "Then you'll discover that continuing your expansion becomes very difficult when every species you try to conquer has allies with technology you can't match. You'd go to war to protect other species?" "We'd prefer not to. War is wasteful and expensive. But yes, if necessary, we would fight to protect our allies and prevent aggressive empires from conquering peaceful species." Elena showed him one final display. It showed the current positions of human and allied fleets throughout the galaxy. The coverage was comprehensive, with friendly forces positioned to respond to threats anywhere in known space. This is what your empire is up against, Sub-Admiral. Not just humans, but a coalition of 43 species that have learned to work together. We have combined our knowledge, our technology, and our resources. We've been preparing for situations like this for decades. Thekran stared at the display in amazement. "We never had a chance, did we? Not if you insisted on fighting. But if you choose to join us, you have every chance of building a better future for your people, a future based on exploration and discovery instead of conquest and domination. What would happen to our military? The same thing that happened to Vorthan and Hegemony military forces. They became exploration fleets, research vessels, and emergency response teams. Much more interesting work than conquering people who don't want to be conquered." Elena stood up to leave. "You'll be returned to your ship soon, Sub-Admiral. Your people need to make a decision, and they need their officers to help them make it. But I want you to understand something important." "What?" "Humans didn't become powerful by conquering other species. We became powerful by convincing other species to work with us. The Zephyrian Empire can choose to be our enemy, or it can choose to be our partner, but it can't choose to ignore us anymore. As Elena walked away, Thecaron continued staring at the data on her tablet. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had been wrong. The Zephyrian Empire wasn't a major power expanding into primitive territory. It was a small, aggressive state that had accidentally picked a fight with a coalition that spanned half the galaxy. The question now was whether his people were smart enough to recognize that fact and make the right choice. Admiral Kethvara stood in the main conference room of his flagship, but he was no longer in command. Around the table sat representatives from 12 different species, all members of what they called the Galactic Cooperative Alliance. Admiral Chen sat at the head of the table, with Dr. Vasquez beside her holding a data tablet that seemed to contain information about everything the Zephyrian Empire had ever done. "The choice is simple," Admiral Chen was saying. "Your people can join us as equals, contributing your knowledge and abilities to our shared goals. Or you can continue trying to build an empire, knowing that you'll be opposed at every step by 43 allied species." Kethvara looked around the table at the alien faces watching him. He recognized some of the species from Zephyrian intelligence reports. The tall, elegant Vorthons had supposedly been conquered by humans decades ago, yet here they sat as equal partners. The insectoid hegemon delegates had reportedly been destroyed in a war with humanity, yet they were obviously very much alive and prosperous. "I don't understand," Kethvara said. "How did humans convince so many different species to work together? Every empire we've studied eventually collapses because different species can't cooperate for long." A Vorthon delegate named Saranthak answered. "Because humans don't rule us, Admiral. They coordinate with us. There's a difference." "What kind of difference?" Dr. Vasquez activated her tablet and projected a holographic display into the center of the table. It showed the structure of the Galactic Cooperative Alliance, with interconnected networks linking dozens of worlds and species. "Traditional empires work from the top down," she explained. "One species conquers others and forces them to obey. But humans learned early that forced cooperation doesn't last. So we built something different." "Different how?" Admiral Chen spoke up. "Every species in our alliance maintains complete autonomy over their internal affairs. We don't tell Vorthons how to run their society, and they don't tell us how to run ours, but we work together on things that benefit everyone. Exploration, research, trade, defense against aggressive empires, and it works?" Saranthak laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Admiral, the Vorthon people are more prosperous and happier now than we ever were when we had our own empire. We explore new worlds instead of conquering them. We discover new knowledge instead of suppressing it. We trade with dozens of species instead of fighting them." A hegemon delegate whose name Kethvara couldn't pronounce clicked its mandibles in agreement. "The hegemony controlled 17 systems through force. Now we have access to trade and knowledge from over 200 systems through cooperation. Which do you think is better?" Kethvara studied the display showing Alliance territory. It was vast, covering a significant portion of the galaxy. But it wasn't organized like any empire he'd ever seen. Instead of a central capital controlling everything, it looked like a network of independent nodes all connected to each other. "How do you make decisions?" he asked. "How do you coordinate military action across so many different species?" "Very carefully," Admiral Chen replied. "And usually by consensus. When the Alliance identified the Zephyrian Empire as a potential threat, we spent 18 months planning how to respond. Every species contributed ideas, resources, and personnel. 18 months? We knew about your expansion plans before you did, Admiral. Human intelligence services have been monitoring Zephyrian communications for over 2 years. We were reading your government's strategic planning documents as they were being written." Dr. Vasquez pulled up another display. "We also had agents on worlds you conquered, documenting your methods and talking to your subject populations. We wanted to understand whether the Zephyrian Empire could be negotiated with, or whether it would have to be stopped by force. And your conclusion? That your people are basically decent, but your government has made some poor choices. Most Zephyrians don't really want to conquer other species. They want security, prosperity, and the chance to explore the galaxy. Sound familiar?" Kethvara nodded slowly. "Those were exactly the things most Zephyrians wanted. So what happened to the worlds we conquered?" Saranthak answered. "They were liberated gradually over the past year. The populations were evacuated to safe locations while human and allied forces took control of the infrastructure. No one was harmed, but your empire's ability to support expansion was quietly eliminated. You're saying we've been ruling empty worlds? For the most part, yes. We wanted your military focused on managing territory instead of planning new conquests. It gave us time to prepare for this moment. Admiral Chen leaned forward. Admiral, right now your government is meeting with Alliance representatives on Zephyr Prime. They're being offered the same choice we're offering you. Join us willingly, or discover that continuing your current path has become impossible. What happens if we refuse? The room was quiet for a moment. Then Dr. Vasquez activated a new display that made Kethevara's breath catch in his throat. It showed Alliance ship positions throughout the galaxy. There were thousands of them, positioned to control every major space lane and protect every inhabited system. If you refuse, Admiral Chen said quietly, then every time your people try to expand, they'll find Alliance forces already there. Every time you try to conquer a world, you'll discover that world is under our protection. Every time you try to build new ships, you'll find that your supply lines have been disrupted. We'll be trapped in our own territory. You'll be contained until you decide that cooperation is better than conquest. However long that takes. Kethevara looked around the table again. These species were offering the Zephyrian Empire a choice, but it wasn't really a choice at all. They had made resistance impossible while making cooperation attractive. This was all planned from the beginning, wasn't it? You wanted our fleet to come to Earth. We needed to get your military leadership away from your homeworld so we could talk to your civilian population without interference, Admiral Chen admitted. Your fleet coming to Earth gave us the perfect opportunity. And if we had stayed home, then we would have found another way. Humans are patient, Admiral. We plan for long-term success, not short-term victories. Dr. Vasquez spoke up. Admiral, I want to show you something that might help you understand what we're offering. She activated a new display, showing quality of life statistics for worlds in the Alliance compared to worlds in various empires. The difference was dramatic. Alliance worlds showed higher prosperity, better healthcare, more education opportunities, and significantly less military spending. This is what cooperation looks like, she said. Species working together instead of fighting each other. Knowledge shared instead of hoarded. Resources used for exploration and development instead of conquest and control. Kethevara studied the data. Even accounting for possible bias in the presentation, the numbers were impressive. What would be expected of us if we joined? Saranthak answered. Contribute what you can, take what you need, and don't try to conquer your neighbors. The Zephyrian people are skilled engineers and crystal growers. Those abilities would be very valuable to the Alliance. And our military would become part of the Alliance defense fleet, Admiral Chen said. Your ships and crews would help protect Alliance worlds and respond to emergencies. Much more interesting work than intimidating civilians into surrendering. A new voice came through the communication system. It was Sub-Admiral Thekran speaking from Zephyr Prime. Admiral Kethevara, this is Thekran. I'm speaking from the capital. Sir, you need to see what's happening here. Report, Sub-Admiral. The entire civilian population is in the streets, Admiral. They're celebrating. The Alliance representatives have been explaining what membership would mean, and the people are excited about it. They're tired of war, sir. They want to explore and build instead of fight. Admiral Chen smiled. Your people are already making their choice, Admiral. The question is whether your military will support that choice or oppose it. Kethevara was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, what happens to me? To my officers? We've spent our careers building an empire. You've spent your career serving your people, Dr. Vasquez corrected. Now you can continue serving them in a different way. The Alliance always needs experienced officers for exploration missions, first contact situations, and emergency response operations. First contact? Admiral, this galaxy is huge. We've mapped maybe 10% of it. There are hundreds of species out there that we've never met. Some of them will need help. Some will want to trade. Some might even be hostile and need to be stopped from hurting others. We need experienced military officers for all of those situations. Admiral Chen stood up. Admiral Kethevara, I'm going to ask you to make a decision. Not just for yourself, but for your entire fleet. Will you lead your people into the Alliance as willing partners? Or will you force us to treat you as an ongoing threat? Kethevara looked around the table one more time. Representatives from dozens of species, all working together peacefully. All prosperous and content. all free to govern themselves while cooperating on larger goals. He thought about his own people, celebrating in the streets because they finally had a chance for peace. He thought about Sub-Admiral Thekron's reports of empty worlds they thought they controlled.